evening, everyone. Thank you for coming for our KW Malaysia regional training today. And today, backed by popular demand, we have really in the house Gabi Brennesholtz all the way from the East Coast of the US. Now, for those who are here with us today, if you have heard Gabi spoke last year, please press 1. Let's just see how popular you are, Gabi, right now. You have heard Gabi spoke last year and you are blessed by her. Please press 1. Officially, you are I think the only trainer from the US that has came back for the second time.
Oh, I feel so honored.
Really back by popular demand. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further delay, because Gabi is on a very tight schedule and I want her to have the best and the most time with everyone here today. Maps Mastery Coach Gabi Brennesholtz here for you today. Gabi, please take us away.
Gosh, Jonathan, thank you so much for the incredibly warm welcome back. I am just so thrilled to be able to spend more time with you this year as we continue, our journey of what is and what is in this world. So I hope that the last year has been treating you well despite the environmental circumstances and all that is in the world, and that you have chosen to take some of the action items from the last time when we discussed, really mastering yourself, right? And then getting on this path to self-mastery, and how appropriate that today we are almost picking up where we left off the last time regarding the topic, mastering your winning mindset. So thank you again. I'm super excited to start this guided discussion with you and invite you to explore some ways to think about really analyzing and executing it effectively in your precious life. I also want to pay big gratitude to all of you who are choosing to spend time with me over the next 45 minutes or so, because I know it's the end of your day and it's just the beginning of mine. So my goal is to make sure that this time you'll get to walk away with just one thing that is going to help you get on your journey of mastering your winning mindset. First of all, I need to make a declaration right up front. Please know, I am not a mindset expert, and I certainly don't win my mindset every day. And also keep in mind, this is not official MAPS or KWU training, but I am simply a coach who has the great pleasure to being with some of the brightest minds in our KW ecosystem on a weekly basis. You see, these are very, very successful business owners and investors and multiple other businesses outside of real estate. And regardless of the business ventures they find themselves in, some of the most common hurdles that they face are around mindset. Fear of failure, fear of how much longer will this last, fear of, can I do it again? So press 1 if you've ever been in one of those mindset spaces where you wake up one morning or perhaps on January 1 and you've asked yourself those questions. Yeah, exactly, right? So the ones are coming in. I'm just like you. So the question became, as I've spent the last 6 years and close to 10,000 hours of coaching, listening to those amazing MAPS coaching clients of ours, I kept watching some of them become rather stagnant in their businesses and lives. And, in some cases, they're ultimately self-selected out of my world. Well, you can't imagine how that feels as a coach and somebody who has really, locked in partnership with them, right? Feels pretty disappointing, and that's certainly a two-way street. And I kept asking myself, what has caused them not to be able to master their formula for what it would take to win the battle against their greatest enemy, against our greatest enemy, right? Our mind. And so I started to really think about the lessons that I needed to learn as a coach to be able to grow and help partners who would say yes to our partnership again. And also, I really needed to figure out whether I was trying to solve the right challenges in their lives, or if I was just, trying to remove the smoke without actually getting to the fire, and continue to prescribe things that I was hoping would cause a change. So what I realized, what was ultimately happening to those who started to make progress and succeed, were folks in their life that were really clear. They were able to really nail what it is that moved them forward, so that when they showed up for the hard tactical works, whether it was as a parent or as a spouse or on the job, they knew that there was something that was driving them beyond the next 24 hours of stuff they had to do. They really needed to be clear on who they wanted to become or who they needed to be in order to pull them forward. So today, I hope it's okay that we're going to make this a little interactive to hear from some of your stories. In fact, I love that one of the first things that I read in the intro video was that you have been talking about those real stories of your real estate. And I would also add that today we're going to get real around life. And so let's start with defining today's conversation. I invite you to think about, yes, we're going to walk away with action items and a small system that can help you to move forward on what you're going to hear shortly. But bigger yet, I want you to also really hear that sometimes instead of focusing on the doing or on how to execute, that part of how to win on your mindset, maybe an invitation for you to actually slow down and begin to reflect based on the lessons that your life or your job too has given you over the past year. So let's hear it from you. What does winning, the word winning, really mean to you? And how do you define it? You can feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to just jump right in, or I invite you to use the chat box interactively today. I'm going to open it up and see who has a simple definition of what winning is. Do I have a volunteer who'd like to unmute themselves? In one sentence, what's winning? Yeah, Jonathan, just put in the chat box, it's to get up and still keep going every day. I like that word still, right? Yeah, being the best. That's winning over self. Interesting, Peter. Thank you for that. Yeah, and being able to make progress no matter how slow. So I see there's some commonalities here in your responses, right? So it's over self, making progress, right? The idea of still keeping going, fantastic. Above mediocre, great. Being able to be a better me and much more than I can ever think I could be. Noreen, that's powerful, right? So as you look at those responses, keep this in mind. All of you have a definition of winning, and they're all different definitions. And it's really important to remember that winning or mastering, fighting negativity, right? That's a good one too. Fighting the inner demon. But the idea is that you really get clear on what winning really means to you. Let's try with the other word of our topic of discussion today. What is your definition of mindset? So we have to get really, really clear on what it is that we're trying to solve. Mindset. Let's see if we have two of the same definitions around mindset. Elaine says our being, yeah. What else? Yeah, having a right mind. How we think, how we feel, how we behave. Oh yeah, great, Christine, thank you. Changing the stinking thinking. Yeah, it's our thoughts, our philosophy that governs our action and behavior. Leave it up to Jonathan to have the encyclopedic response to that. Great, thank you. We always know who our brainiacs are in the group, right? Yeah. Attitude, right? You got it. So when you think about your definition of what winning means to you and your definition of mindset and the clarity that you have on how these two need to be married together, I invite you to start thinking about what is that for you? What is your definition of mastery? And that would be the third term that I would invite you to just take a moment to think about what is mastery to you, because when you're clear on just the three definitions of these words that really matter, right? When we use them, they remove themselves from being this bumper sticker, something that we say, to words that we really get in relationship with. And that's really where it begins. So I'd like to hear it one more time from you. What is your definition of mastery? I can tell you, after having watched the Olympics, my definition of mastery certainly has been elevated, because holy cow, you know, these are people who are at the top of their game. Let's see here, self-discipline, self-mastering. There's that word self again that keeps trickling in, great. So when he says self-mastering, unconsciously competent. Yes, Agnes says, I'm very good in what I do. I love that. Competent, oh, control, beautiful. Superior in knowledge and skills, and becoming the best of yourself. You guys are nailing it. So the question then becomes, what is your definition of mastery? Your definition of creating winning, and your mindset is really about focusing on that journey, avoiding hanging on to what's at the end of it, right? It's as Gary actually says in MREA on page 291, it's all about the little differences that make the big differences in our lives. And for those of you who have had a chance to read the Red Book or the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, one of the first things that Gary starts to talk about in the book, and that's not by default, it's in fact by purpose and design, is you really got to be clear on what actually matters to you. And just to give you the punchline of it, in case you haven't read yet, number one, get the book, by the way, it's fantastic. It's a business book that certainly can be applied to any and all areas of your life. But Gary begins with thinking big and having a vision, right? So you may be wondering, well, how does it apply to how to, create a winning mindset? We'll get there, I promise. So if you think about that, once you're clear on on how you're going to create meaningful relationships with those words that we started to dip our toes into, I invite you to next really be thinking about your vision. So some of the questions that I would invite you to think about are, what really matters to you? And perhaps if I have a fast typer, somebody can also get into the chat box and nail those, write those questions down. But really be thinking about what really matters to you. How are you living in your life's values right now? Are you clear on what your values are? And the last time when your life was particularly rewarding and sweet and poignant and rich, what was that like? Right? These are questions about creating an emotional peak experience for yourself. What did you do then? Who did you do it with? And thank you for your transparency. I see that some of you are mentioning it was with family. Right? Where were you? What was the weather like? These are kinds of deepening questions that allow you to reflect and slow down. When you think about those peak experiences, what do you need to put in place now, despite all that's going on, right? Because we've been in this whirlwind for the last 18 months. But what about now to put these things in place, these experiences in place in order to get what you want out of your life? These are the kinds of visionary questions that move us really away from talking about the jobs, right, and all these hard tactical things that you may choose to do every day to show up. And these are questions about self-fulfillment. We call that being in the zone, right? Because if you can catapult yourself back into that time and you can really visualize what that's like, who you were with, what you were doing, maybe what you were sensing, tasting, it's a recreation of you being in a certain state of flow that make you feel a certain way. You with me? Yeah, we all have had those experiences, right? Whether it was that time when your child was born or when you had a really incredible meal with people who have been transformative in your life, we've all been there. Think about it. Now that I've invited you to think about some of those questions, really, I equate this almost like going to the gym. Can you give me a number 2 this time if you've been to the gym at some point in your life? Now the truth comes out. Excellent. We had a couple, right? And when you go to the gym, you have some folks who love the dance classes, right? You walk in and you see this whole like group full of people who just do crazy moves and they're all together and you can tell they're having a really great time. And then on the other side of the gym, you have the people who are the buffs, right? They show up and every time they come in, like they're just gonna lift more weights and, you know, they do things that I can't even imagine doing this, all this lead that they're lifting. Great. And then you may have some people who show up and they just enjoy being on their bikes, right? And what they love to do for 2 hours is just spin away, spin away, spin away. The thing is, they all share parts of a common theme or goal, right? Because they all showed up. They all put on their tennis shoes or their sneakers and they decided, I'm going to go to the gym. Yet the way that they show up and what they end up doing are all different paths or journeys based on what makes them happy or what will grow their fitness, their strength, and their body, right? So putting on their gear and what they end up doing shows up totally differently, which is why when you choose to slow down to answer those questions about your own life, is it possible that your life's vision may look vastly different from the person next to you? Please say yes. Absolutely. And you have to understand that that kind of fulfillment, right, or learning how to master your winning mindset is your birthright. It's not something that you're necessarily needing to learn from any kind of class. It's just something that when you have some simple steps of action to take, you can challenge yourself on to really build that for yourself based on what fuels you, based on why you choose to show up every day once you know what fuels you, and to make certain that your environment is the support that you may need to start living in that vision, because sometimes you may not believe in yourself as some other folks who watch what you're doing, right? I've certainly been there, right? None of us were born to be mediocre. And if it's up to me, it's up to be and to do, to slow down long enough to create your perfect life. So let's talk about some 5 simple steps, because I'm thinking at this point you're ready for some homework that you can choose to do for yourself to create your personal vision statement. Number 1, and by the way, a similar pattern of this is also in MREA. I will offer you those pages so that you can take a look at those simple steps again and hopefully share them with others, because if you ever have a challenge in your life, chances are somebody who's dear to you in your world has the same challenges. So I would invite you to create that personal vision statement. We've gone ahead of Maps and actually created a simple sheet with questions, visionary questions that I would be more than happy to share with you all today. And if that's okay with you, Christine or Jonathan, I will just email them to you and perhaps you can get them out to the group.
Okay, no problem.
Perfect, fantastic. So that may just help you to, it's like a memory jogger so that you don't have to, figure out, oh my gosh, where do I even start? Vision sounds so big, right? So consider creating a personal vision statement. And some of those visionary questions that you will see may even help you to really dig in deeper on what winning means to you. Because my definition of winning, Jonathan's definition of winning, will be very different from what your ultimate definition is of winning and success. The second step I would offer to you is that you time block a specific regular time. It may be just once a month, or perhaps you're ready to do that every week, to stay in a relationship with that vision document. Don't allow this to be like the fancy training or seminar that you took and then you did a great job creating that homework and then you put it on the seminar shelf, right? Does everybody have that shelf in their office where you put stuff on, and it's such a smart shelf because we put all the information there and then we walk away and do something else, right? Stop that. Not with this document, because this is how you create a meaningful relationship with your life. Step 3 would be to get accountability from those who really care about you. And I really invite you to think big about this, because your first thought may be that, yeah, it's my spouse, it's my kids, it's my family, right? But think about colleagues in your environment, right? Jonathan, enlist people who you have a massive amount of love and respect for. Perhaps you have a coach or mentor. And don't keep this a secret. In fact, I would invite you to share that vision statement with at least 5 other humans. You can share it with me, just saying. And make sure that those humans are aware of what it is that pulls you, right? Because sometimes when times get tough, those are going to be the people who will start to believe more in you than you do for yourself. Make sure that your environment supports your vision. If they don't, create a new environment, right? Is it possible sometimes when you actually declare what it is that you want, that some people will look at your dreams or your idea and definition of success, and they'll say, I don't think you can do it. I don't believe it can be done. Been there, have you? When that happens, be really, really clear on who's going to fuel you and will have an impact on you constantly, because your environment is either going to really build you up or they're going to tear you down and fight you. So be really, really careful of who you choose to be around. It's what Gary in MREA actually calls the people environment, right? It's about being around people who have that same energy and synergy towards similar goals as you, right? They don't have to be the same. Yet, unless you find that kind of positivity in your life, they're going to continue to pull you down, right? It's finding ways to create energy to maintain your momentum as you're starting to build this and continue to be in relationship with the vision statement, because it's a living document. Be okay with building that initial environment. And as you start becoming more and more in relationship with that document, also be okay when people will re-enter or leave your life. Because that's what happens when you choose to make your vision a living document. So as you may have heard, I'm pretty big on vision these days. It is the starting point of all high performance. Yeah. So I'd actually love to hear it from you. And again, if you'd like to unmute yourself or put an answer in the chat box, I will look at my other screen here and make sure I don't miss anything. How much time did you spend over the last week living in your vision and in your positive future? Love transparency. Be honest. Yes, and thank you so much, Yoon, for reiterating the question. Yeah, Jonathan says not enough. That's honest. An hour every day, William. Wow, amazing. Who can match William on this end, right? So chances are maybe not enough is the answer for a lot of us. Yeah, Chris is he's underlining that as well. How many vision statements have you recently read of others? Like, the thing is, like the North Star, our life's vision and purpose either steers us on a course through life that will resonate deeply with us, and it's the truth of who we really are. So if we don't have that roadmap, if we don't have that North Star, then how clear are we on the goalpost of our own definition of what success and winning is, right? The thing is, the vision statement is going to help you to pull you through that smoke when you start having fires or road bumps in your life. And if we don't slow down long enough in order to be able for us to realize what those things are, we're never going to get to the fire. And by that, I mean the fire in your belly, right? The stuff that when you wake up in the morning and you don't feel like making calls, creating a client event that's yet another digital experience, right? Because you're tired of Zoom, you're tired of the current environment. We got to connect with the fire, and it's the fire in our belly. Yeah. So it's really winning the mind over feelings. You may have heard this in trainings before, because we're really big at Keller Williams on this, is that our thoughts, right? And for us to really master what not enters at the first thought, but how we recover at the second thought, and what we say to ourselves when those potential negative thoughts caused by human emotions, which we have, enter, on how we control that. In one of our trainings at KW, we call that point FAR, PTFAR. It starts with your thoughts or your programming that creates a certain set of emotions, right? And as humans, if you're like me, you experience the whole range of emotions, right? Some days are great, and some days you wake up and you go, what is it that I put in the universe today that just is giving me all these rich lemons that I get to turn into lemonade, right? Because your thoughts create those emotions. But if you learn how to control your thoughts and you control your emotions, then you can ultimately start to learn how to control your emotions and you control your actions. Once you start to learn how to control your actions, you control the outcome, and your emotions ends up driving your actions. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and put this in for you. This idea is one that we train to in a class called Bold. And it's also a cycle, if you think about this, right? Because once you learn how your emotions can be controlled based on your toolkit, based on your ability to find ways to reduce the spectrum of emotions, you can recreate new actions, right? And those new actions control new thoughts, and they control new emotions that you're creating. So that over time, it feels less like you're creating really big emotional swings, but you're starting to narrow your range of emotions because you can become almost stoic or more in control, right? Not because you're not going to have human emotions, but because you're going to learn how to recover faster, right, for yourself. Just as a reminder, for those of you who are MREA fans, Millionaire Real Estate fans, that focus chapter that Gary puts towards the end of the book, which is also followed by the energy chapter. I call that the fifth model in MREA, right, because it's so underutilized, can really help you deepen your learning around this, if you would like to reread some of this. So the importance of the system, right? So now we've talked about, all right, so the importance of having a vision statement in our lives is something that can pull you once you're really clear on why you want to be pulled, right? Because otherwise all that hard tactical work is just going to overcome you and ultimately bury you. Don't be buried. There's another part of the system. Once you've answered those visionary questions, the second part of the system is also to be really, really clear on chunking down that vision. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes when people hear vision, or they, even on the document at MAPS, we say these are 10-year visionary questions. If you're like me, 10 years ago, the Gabi that was showing up at the job was not the Gabi that's showing up today. Press 1 if you are a different person now today than you were 10 years ago. Right? I mean, if you really think about it, I was even more crazy 10 years ago than I am today. Right? So a lot of us, if you think about what's going to happen in 10 years, that can be a little overpowering, right? Because that's 2031 is the year we're looking at. But in the absence of deadlines, if you're not clear on what you want your vision to look like, right? That's what causes the overwhelm. So should you be like me in that regard, just chunk it down. What is your why, or what are some of the questions that you'll see on the sheet that you can answer for you to become somebody 30 days from now, right? Becoming a winner in 30 days from now. What about 90 days from now? The important piece about this part of the system is to chunk it down and really put a limit on it, right? Because in the absence of deadlines, you'll never know what your life's milestones really are. Deadlines can be small. Remember that many of you mentioned this is about self, right? And this is about focusing on the process so much more than the outcome, because who knows, right, what the outcome is going to look like 10 years from now. But the other key piece or magical ingredient to winning a mindset is that you're clear on those milestones: 7 days, 21 days, 30 days, 90 days, 6 months. Determining what those milestones are. The next part of the system is a recovery plan. You may want to write that down. Well, why do I need a recovery plan when I try to win in mindset? Well, because life is all about your ability to really learn how to prepare for those lemons in life, or the lemonade that you get to make, and how to recover. Think about it. The Olympics recently, all we saw were individuals who, actually one of my favorite examples was the American Molly Seidel, right, who ran the marathon. She was a candidate in the marathon and ended up placing third. All we saw was what for 26.2 miles she chose to do. By the way, that Olympic marathon was only the third marathon she had ever run in her career. And she scored a medal, right? I mean, total spirit animal for me, because I can barely make it to 26.2 of training for a marathon right now. So, you know, and to run that at 5 minutes and 30 seconds. And all we saw was those moments, right? In the US, we have a cookie called an Oreo. And what it is, it's a black, do you have Oreos too in Malaysia? Okay, great. Yeah, love those things. Oh, fantastic. All capital yes. And the thing is with Oreos, they have this, my favorite part is the one in the middle. Who's with me on that? Maybe I'm giving too much away about my my downsides here. Yeah, right? So, and the middle part, just like what we saw with Molly Seidel, is that white, delicious, soft filling. Think about having your preparation plan, right, with a vision statement, and your recovery plan as the two pieces that make that delicious cookie complete. So the stuff in the middle, your performance or how you may be showing up to your environment, it's really just a third of what it is made up. And yet we tend to focus so much on the how-tos or the doings in the middle. It's not a bad thing, right? But it means we're literally missing 2/3 of the cookie. So for you to create a recovery plan is going to mean that when you know that you're a human being and life is going to create challenges or road bumps for you, that you also learn what the tools or tactics are that work for you to be able to pick yourself up, to get up and try again, right? Again, that's the idea of really figuring out yourself. Because when you have a recovery plan, what you're able to do is you can minimize the downsides. Remember earlier I mentioned we, as humans, we have this whole spectrum of emotions, right? Those are not going to go away. But what we can do is when we have an effective recovery plan, you can recover faster, pick yourself up, and get back in the race and stay in the race of winning. Right? Olympians, these are the people who have the greatest, among the greatest mental agility of humans that I have ever witnessed, certainly on television, but if you really think about it, these are some of the, I believe, toughest humans, right? That are clearly focused on the process, clearly focused on the preparation, so that by the time they show up, even if they trip or even when they start to enter dehydration, they know what they need to do to recover, right? And as you may have heard from some of the interviews during the Olympics, they are about who they think about step by step along the way, or in Molly Seidel's case, with every mile that they are passing, because they know what's at the end. They're clear on those milestones. With every mile that they enter, they also know when some of those miles stand the chance for them to emotionally start to go down the dumps, right? Because they get tired. You may have heard that the marathon had to be moved 500 miles up north in hopes that the weather would cooperate more with those marathon runners. Well, it didn't. It was hot. It was humid. They hadn't prepared for that kind of weather. Certainly not, an American marathon runner. She was an underdog, but you know what? The one thing was that she was able to do was pull herself based on an uncommon desire to do something that very few people have done before, right? That's being clear on the process and being clear on focus. Have a recovery plan. Thank you, Christine, for putting that in. So under the action items, I would encourage you in this order to build your life's resume, like really that vision statement, and consider getting other people's vision statements if you feel like you need examples. You may know me already, I'm an open book. If anybody would like to see mine, I actually keep it printed out because, oh, good. Sometimes Zoom does not allow me to show documents. I promise this is my vision statement. And what I in fact do is I enlist my environment, my coaches, my husband, my family, and every week I update that vision statement and I print it out. And I print it out for myself and I print a version for my husband. And that's how it begins. Every week, I share it with people who really care about my life, right? It's just in a Google document, and I share it because I know the more eyeballs are looking at that vision statement, the more meaning it starts to create. Because some weeks my friends or my family will show up and say, have you reached that wild goal yet? And it may just be a gentle reminder, and sometimes not so gentle, to look at this again and to ask myself, right? What is just 1% of something that I can do to move that needle forward on becoming a better spouse, becoming a better friend, becoming a more impactful coach? That's because my environment full on supports me, right? And sometimes that doesn't feel nice. Have a deadline when you are going to have your first draft written. My draft now is over 3 pages long, and I promise you that is not how I started when I chose to get real and write about this just a short 2 years ago. In fact, some of my clients who have declared that they're starting this now, this document creation, may only show up with 2 sentences, but you know what? Is that 1% better than what they may have done 2 weeks ago? Please say yes. Right? It's not about comparing your selves to other people's outsides, because remember, we all started with just one word, or perhaps just opening the document, right? Just putting on your tennis shoes to go to the gym, regardless of how showing up at the gym will look. Enlist your environment and build that recovery plan before life throws you lemons. Because when you are in the throes of catching all those lemons, it may be hard for you to remember what makes you feel good again, or what you can do to just laugh more, to get yourself out of those big emotional spectrum, right? And oftentimes we focus on those negative emotions, right? Anxiety, sadness, the stuff that really pulls you down. But if you have a recovery plan of specific things that you can do or experience or share with others that pull you out of that mood, again, you're just minimizing that spectrum of emotion to learn how to recover faster and then to refocus on the process of your journey. So I hope today, my goal was to have you leaving with one action item or something that you can do to live your life just at 1% differently. And my wish is that you took something away today. Thanks, guys. Jonathan, I'd love to open it up to perhaps a couple of questions, or Christine.
Right. Yeah. Hey, Gabi, I think it's a very, very, today we have a very good, deep conversation. I think a lot of self-reflective conversations that's happening probably in a lot of people's mind right now. But I think there are a couple of questions I would like to just kind of follow up with you. I think the first one, and I understand the vision statement is very important, but I guess one of the best ways for us to start is probably having a great environment to support us to even take the action step. And right now we are in this challenging environment where a lot of people are disconnected physically and a lot of ambiguity of what's going to happen in the future and all that. But how then can we, what are your suggestions for us to create a good environment that will help us to get this started?
Thank you so much for that question. It's a great one. Yeah, so the removal of physicalness, right, has been a challenge all over the world, because we are, as humans, right, we are so reliant on community. And what I've observed that has worked well for our clients is that, that you choose to deal with what is right now and to choose digital environments that can help you create that too. Keep in mind that can be something as simple as creating Zoom environments with other high-minded individuals or people, right? People who are on that same journey that can help you to create some of those recovery tools, like laughing together, right? Having happy hours together. Heck, we have a group of coaches every week where we get up together, we look at those vision statements, and sometimes we tell jokes, right? But it's anything that changes your chemical balance, especially when you're not feeling well. So in a digital space, it may just look a little differently, right? But that's also where I invite you to bring out your inner child and think about it. What was life like when I was a first grader? Yeah, I would have been really sad not to go to the playground, right? But I would have figured out how to have a whole lot of fun. Maybe that's Gabi 10 years ago too, even though I can't be at the playground.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Right. I think the next question would be, and there's a question in the chat box as well. What is a good suggestion of how a recovery plan looks like? What would be for example, what have you heard of others having a recovery plan? How does that look like for others that you have seen?
Yeah, it's another great question. Thank you. Well, it could be I'm a simpleton, right? I just really like to not make things complicated because complexity isn't scalable. So I have a little journal. And it's so funny you asked that, because in my journal just this week, I just started to create a page that says on the top, what felt good this week. Sometimes when we're in the moment of our state of flow, right? It's easy for us to forget when we are not in a state of flow, not feeling good, about what the things are that actually make us laugh, content, peaceful, happy, joyful. So it might be the simplest system to grab a specific journal, binder, piece of paper and call it your happiness box. I just came up with it. Somebody trademarked it. So if you have your happiness box or your happiness page, and you just start to notice, because you're slowing down and reflecting on what gets you on the other spectrum of those happy emotions, what you may discover is that there are some simple things in life that make you really happy. For me personally, Jonathan, it's walking my dog. I love that thing. I call him my COVID dog. We adopted him last year during COVID because he was found as a stray. I couldn't say no, right? So when I have just 5 minutes a day not a day, but for every break, to be able to hug him, take him out, look at his cute little face, I know that is one of my pills of happiness. I have certain friends. Jonathan, do you have any friends in your life where every time when you talk to them, not that they're better than other friends, but those friends who are just freaking funny?
Right.
So when I have a bad day, right, I have those names in my happiness toolkit. And when I have a bad day, I will just send them a bad signal. In fact, it's a pre-agreed setting that we have now, because sometimes right, emojis work better for me than words. And oh no, right, I'm sending out my smoke signal. I need to talk to them. Right. So I get on the phone with them, and it doesn't even matter what they say. They just always make me feel great.
Right.
Little things like that.
Right. So having a lot of action items that is simple that you can take and just go into that mode of recovery, the things that makes you feel better or makes you think better, and having a lot of support around us, right? Because I think that is one of the key things. If there are people to support us, well, there are a lot of people today, because of a lot of separation or a lot of disconnection, and some people feels that it's difficult to reach out. Some people feel that it's difficult to really get out there and really ask for help. Isolation. Thank you, Agnes. Right. How can we then help? How can we ask for help when we know it's necessary, but it's just difficult? What are your advice for those people who is struggling to even go and ask for help?
Yeah, I would honestly, I challenge you to break out of your shell and not to find 20 people that you would want to ask for help, just find one. Because sometimes overcoming the bravery of asking just one person may be your breakthrough to enter a new ceiling of like learning to become how to be more vulnerable. And if I may be completely honest with you all, I know we're just a small group being recorded, but sometimes the hardest thing to do is just to start. Let us be the person that you can email or hop on a FaceTime with. Just start, and don't be afraid of rejection, because chances are you're not going to get rejected. Right.
Thank you for saying that. Right.
Yeah.
Guys, do you have any questions to ask Gabi? Because she's really, really busy, and it's really an honor for us to have her here today. But any of you got any questions, any ahas, maybe any thoughts that you want to share as you are getting? I know it's a lot, it's kind of deep stuff you're talking about here. It's a lot. But do share your ahas to encourage someone else who is also listening at the same time. Also to encourage Gabi that she's also delivering a lot of value to everyone as well. So guys, please do share your ahas, your thoughts, and your questions. Right. See that. So now you're back by popular demand. Can we see you again? What next year? I'm thinking about next week, but
Right? Oh my gosh, I'm just so humbled. I'm glad that the deep conversations aren't a deterrent for me to come back, right? But that's the really rich stuff, right? If you sit, it's like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm a huge fan of, me and food analogies by now. I love to eat. But have you ever had like a really rich miso, right? Or like a Japanese broth, and how long it takes just to make the base. So if you think about the ingredients that go on top, that's the stuff that can be prepared fairly easily, and meaning it still takes like a day or two in some cases. But that broth is so rich and so wonderful because it takes the longest to create. And your vision, or the what will drive your richness in life, it's just like that delicious broth, right? And it takes time to slow down and to connect with others that will either inspire you, right, or lift you up to build that.
There's a great question on the chat box, which I think is out of curiosity, by William. Why is your vision statement with so many pages?
Great, that's a great question. Well, it doesn't have to be that way. It's just that I have a lot of dreams for myself, my husband, and the social injustices that I feel like I want to help solve before I leave the planet, so that the document has just gotten really long. Because if you were to look at it now, I think broadly, you would see that it begins with the most important circle I deem in my life, which is my personal and my marriage. But you can really blow up what your vision may be around who you choose to become in your spiritual areas of life, your fitness, let's see here, your business and work, like really the 7 circles that you may be familiar with from the one thing.
Right.
And so when you continue to slow down and really answer those questions, the document can become long.
Right. It's about having a perspective of the entire being of our life, like the entirety of completeness, and you need all those stuff, the 7 stuff inside there to complete, I think, to complete our vision, to complete that perspective, so that we can keep driving forward, right? I believe that's probably why I think it's good to have that very clear. Susan has a question. Can you give 1 or 2 examples of your vision statement, if you don't mind?
Oh, be delighted to. Which one would you like to hear, Susan? Which circle of my life?
Maybe business and
life experience.
Yeah.
Which one? I'm sorry.
Life experience.
Yes. Let's see. This will shock you. Not. Paul and I spend a lot of time outdoors, right? Because you're writing it in the positive future. We are known as the couple that loves to host. We enjoy laughing with others. Our friends and neighbors love spending time with us, and they can't believe our obsession with food. They say we're crazy, yet they love us for it. I'm familiar with all the local farmers and ranchers and enjoy picking up their produce and meats. At home has become where our souls take us. We enjoy following the sun, and we discover new lakes each time we travel in the US and around the world. I'm a big lake freak, by the way. I love lakes. We remain RVers, and we continue to collect fantastic stories of our travels. We have made plans to go to Australia and New Zealand, and we've identified the next trip that makes Paul's heart jump for joy as he discovers new train tracks and experiences around the world.
Thank you, Gabi.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. And I can testify that Gabi is really into food, because I follow her on Facebook, and I see cheese platters, I see meat platters, I see.
Now I'm growing watermelons, right? It's just so much fun.
Right. Yeah. There's another great question here. In the journey of mastery, what is your suggestion in overcoming or curing boredom or being at a plateau?
That's such a rich question, right? It's having your ultimate recovery plan. That's my opinion, right? I don't know if it's the right answer, but when you look at the research of how people have become masters at something, right? Chess, Olympics, a lot of times what you'll notice is that people have been on a journey of about 10,000 hours of repetition. That's a lot of repetition, right? And it's easy to look up and say, oh my gosh, I need to do something different. that's when your recovery plan really comes into play. Because the thing is, when your values are clear, decisions are easy. I'll say that one more time. When your values are clear, decisions are easy. And when you know why you continue to show up in that boredom, because you know what it's ultimately for, right? It's taking husband on every train track around the world, seeing every lake. It's solving not having pets, animals on the street anymore, and not, following the protocols of euthanasia, right? Because a lot of dogs in the US get killed because we don't have enough space, right? And being really clear on why you have to show up on those days when you're bored, then you're really clear with yourself on what matters, right? This matters. And when I leave the world someday, I will know that we will have built an experience, right? A richness of life that really mattered to us and that ultimately still had an impact. Because that's what's important to us.
Right.
I hope that helps.
Right. Gabi, I just want to follow up the questions on this. Have you ever experienced, like you say in your vision statement that you have to work through it to achieve it, and when you achieve it, it was really a great satisfaction. What was that one thing that you have achieved recently or in the past, in your whole life, that you felt that it was really in line with your vision statement and you have did it and it was really a checklist? What was that? What would that one example that maybe you could share with us?
Yeah. The first one that comes to mind is really just the social injustice that my husband and I really choose to solve, and that is, right, animal rescue. So what had happened the last few years is we were involved in foster organizations, and we had, taken in dogs that couldn't find a home at shelters. But the reason, or part of the reason, we ended up buying a new business last year, which is a dog-centric campground, right, for RVers, right? So this is where, by the way, where passion combines profession.
Right.
It was a huge leap for us, or a stepping stone, to have our own business that could not only host animals and their humans that come to visit us, but it would provide us with a new breeding ground to be able to host events. Like, for example, last weekend, we had our first Give Back weekend where we did a big fundraiser for animals in need, right? Because the first thing that we're going to do is help eliminate euthanasia shelters in North Carolina. That's part of what we are going to do.
Right.
And for us, right, that was buying a business, right? Saying yes to that, which is crazy, by the way. A lot of our colleagues were just laughing when they found out what we were doing. And yet to see just a short 6 months later, how it's really catching up and people are loving what we're doing. And they want more of these types of campgrounds and more of these types of collaborations has been not just a 1% getting better, but a huge leap for us to know our vision may be crazy and people may be laughing all over the country over this, but it's working. It's working.
Right. How do you alienate the noise of people laughing at us or people questioning us, or a lot of I would say silly noises that is kind of distracting us from our goal and our purpose? That how do you filter that off to help you to and your husband to really push through and really get that breakthrough in this journey? Just to share with us.
Yeah. We actually no longer hide the pain, right? And in the past, we used to get the laughter, get the you can't do this, you can't do that, and we put it in this box called negative talk, right? We put it on a shelf and feel really bad about it. Now, when people laugh over the stuff that we choose to do, like living in an RV for 2 years, buying a dog-centric campground, eliminating, euthanasia shelters in North Carolina first before we do it in the rest of the region here. We use that laughter and the really as fuel, right? We're no longer letting it hide, because that's the kind of pain, when you get that from your environment, that can either be painful or it can drive you. We're choosing the drive.
Right. So using those negativity as a way to motivate you to move forward, rather than using it to disable us, you are enabling yourself with all those things to really make a case that this is possible.
Right, and I love that you're using the word disable and enable, because the only difference is one syllable.
That's right.
Choose your syllable.
That's right. And the choice is ours. We have the power to create this choice. And I like what you say at the beginning of this session, This is our birthright.
Yeah.
No one can deny us of this right to make that decision. That's really our birthright.
Yeah. And the thing is, Jonathan, when you look back at the end of your precious life and you look at how you've chosen to either disable what you chose to do with your precious life or enable it to leave an impact and legacy for those you care about, I'd rather write an enabling kind of story for myself, wouldn't you?
Absolutely, yes. Anytime, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Now, guys, we are coming to the end of the time because I know Gabi has a tight schedule and I want to respect her time. But how many of you are learning something today? If you are learning something today, please press a 5 on the chat box. If you're learning something today, please press 5. And I want you in any form or any words, express your gratitude to Gabi for really taking her time off. And Gabi, I want to thank you for being a dog advocate myself. I have a rescue dog at home as well. So I want to thank you for doing what you are doing in that area that you live in to really go down hard on the euthanasia of dogs. I think there's just so much that we can do. And thank you for being a role model to us. Thank you for being the role model of possible, the role model of being enabled and not disabled. So thank you for reminding us today that this is our birthright. I'm so privileged and honored to really share this conversation with you today and really looking forward for you to come back to see us very soon. Is there any last advice that you have for us as we clear today?
Yeah, I maybe just a thought or an invitation. I just want you guys to know that much of it, what you heard today about what we're up to in our life is on the human spectrum of, right, things are going great, things are going well. And sometimes it's dangerous to, have somebody you put up on a pedestal in that way, because on the other flip side, I also want you to know if we had the entire night, I would love to continue to share with you just how many times a day I fail and all the stuff that's not going well. So allow me to become a partner in your vision. And whatever that looks like, whether you share something on Facebook or whether you shoot an email just to say, hey, here's how I've chosen to implement it. Partnership is equal, right? And it's not a less than partnership. It is us locking arms on this quest called living a meaningful life that I hope you're hearing today is having a huge impact on how you're choosing to enable yourself. Thanks again, Jonathan. I love being with you.
I hope you would change and amend your region statement and put in Malaysia, Australia, New Zealand, and then maybe just put in Malaysia, because how many of you in Malaysia are waiting to see Gabi live in Malaysia? Please press 1 if you're waiting to see her live. How many of you are waiting to see her live? Come on. Okay, so we're all waiting for you to come. So hopefully the next you it's the physical part, it's in the physical realm and not really in the virtual realm anymore. Thank you so much. You've been a great blessing.
Well, and Jonathan, in the absence of deadlines, it'll never happen. So let's get together and let's figure out when we'll meet in Malaysia.
Awesome. Take care and say hi to Paul for me, and you all have a good rest of the weekend. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend. We'll see you in the next round. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Gabi.
Well, bye.
Do you ever feel like you ain't being done right? Feeling restricted, getting persecuted? Well, I got secrets that I wanna let out. I wanna love aloud. On to